My best friend destroyed my wedding to steal my fiancé, so I destroyed her entire life with one phone call. My name is Olivia, and 2 years ago, my best friend of 15 years orchestrated the most humiliating betrayal I've ever experienced. What she didn't know was that I'd been documenting her crimes for months, waiting for the perfect moment to use what I'd discovered. That moment came at my own wedding. Let me start from the beginning, because this story involves federal crimes, international conspiracies, and the kind of revenge that changes people's lives forever. I met Jessica when we were 13 in 8th grade math class. She was the new girl who'd just moved from California, and I was the shy kid who helped her catch up on everything she'd missed. We became inseparable immediately. Sleepovers every weekend, matching outfits, shared diaries, the whole teenage best friend experience. Jessica was everything I wasn't: confident, outgoing, effortlessly beautiful, and magnetic in a way that drew people to her. I was the quiet, studious one who did well in school but faded into the background in social situations. Together, we balanced each other perfectly. Or so I thought. For 15 years, Jessica was my chosen sister. We went to different colleges but talked every day. We were each other's maid of honor at failed relationships. We traveled together, lived together briefly after college, and shared every major life milestone. When I got engaged to Marcus 2 years ago, Jessica was the first person I called. "Oh my God, Olivia!" she screamed through the phone. "Tell me everything. What's the ring like? How did he propose? When's the wedding?" Marcus was a software engineer I'd met through work. He was kind, stable, successful, and genuinely in love with me. Not the most exciting guy in the world, but solid and trustworthy. After a series of relationships with unreliable men, Marcus felt like a gift. Jessica had met Marcus a few times at dinner parties and group events. She'd always been polite, but not particularly warm toward him. "He's perfect for you," she'd say. Very reliable. The way she said reliable always sounded slightly condescending, but I figured that was just Jessica's personality. She'd always been attracted to more dramatic, unpredictable men. When I asked Jessica to be my maid of honor, she burst into tears. "I'm so honored," she said. "I promise I'll make your wedding perfect." That should have been my first warning sign. Jessica had never been interested in wedding planning before, but suddenly she was obsessed with every detail of my ceremony. She insisted on helping choose my dress, the flowers, the venue, the catering, everything. At first, I was grateful for the help. Planning a wedding while working full-time was overwhelming, but Jessica's involvement became increasingly controlling. "Are you sure about the country club venue?" she'd ask. "It seems a little basic for such an important day. Do you really want roses? They're so overdone. What about something more unique? That dress is pretty, but are you sure it's the most flattering cut for your figure?" Every suggestion I made, Jessica had a better alternative. Every decision I felt confident about, she questioned. I started to feel like a guest at my own wedding planning sessions, but the real red flags began 6 months before the wedding, when Jessica started spending time with Marcus without me. It started innocently enough. She'd text me, "Ran into Marcus at the grocery store, grabbed coffee to discuss wedding surprise ideas for you." Or, "Marcus asked for my help picking out an anniversary gift for you. We're meeting for lunch to look at jewelry stores." At first, I thought it was sweet that my fiancé and best friend were coordinating to make my day special. Then I started noticing other things. Jessica would mention conversations with Marcus that I hadn't heard about. She'd reference inside jokes between them that I wasn't part of. She'd casually mention that Marcus had texted her about random things that had nothing to do with the wedding. "Marcus is so funny," she'd say. "He sent me this hilarious meme about work stress. You're so lucky to have someone who gets your sense of humor." Except Marcus had never sent me that meme, and I'd never seen him exchange numbers with Jessica for anything other than wedding coordination. I started paying closer attention. Jessica had always been naturally flirtatious, but her behavior around Marcus became more obvious. She'd touch his arm when she talked to him. She'd lean in close during conversations. She'd laugh a little too loudly at his jokes. Marcus seemed oblivious to it, or at least uncomfortable with it. He'd step back when she got too close, redirect conversations when they became too personal, and always include me in their interactions. But I could see Jessica testing boundaries. "Marcus, you should take Olivia to that new restaurant downtown," she'd say. Though honestly, the atmosphere might be a little too romantic for someone as practical as her. It was the kind of comment that sounded supportive on the surface, but was actually insulting to me and flirtatious toward him. Or, "Marcus, you have such good taste in music. Olivia's playlist is so safe. You should make her a mixtape with some more adventurous choices." Again, complimenting him while subtly criticizing me. I started documenting these interactions in my phone, partly because they made me uncomfortable and partly because I wanted to make sure I wasn't being paranoid. The pattern became undeniable. 3 months before the wedding, Jessica suggested that she and Marcus should plan my bachelorette party together. "I know what you like, and he knows what you need," she said. "Between the two of us, we can create the perfect celebration." This seemed like a reasonable idea until I realized it meant Jessica and Marcus were spending several hours a week together planning while I was at work. I started asking to see the plans. "It's a surprise," Jessica would say. "Trust us, we've got everything handled. Can you at least tell me the date and general location so I can request time off work? We're still finalizing details. Don't worry about work, we'll make sure you're free." It was my own bachelorette party, and I was being shut out of the planning entirely. That's when I started investigating what Jessica and Marcus were actually doing during their planning sessions. I used Find My Friends to track Jessica's location during her supposed meetings with Marcus. The locations never matched what she told me afterward. She'd say they met at a coffee shop downtown, but her phone showed she was at a bar across town. She'd say they spent an hour looking at party venues, but her location showed she was at Marcus's apartment for 3 hours. I started feeling sick about what this might mean, but I needed proof before I confronted anyone. I borrowed a friend's car and followed them to one of their planning meetings. They went to a wine bar that was definitely not somewhere you'd go to plan a bachelorette party. They sat in a corner booth, leaning close together, talking intimately for 2 hours. At one point, Jessica put her hand on Marcus's face in a gesture that was absolutely not platonic. Marcus didn't pull away immediately. I sat in my car watching my best friend seduce my fiancé under the guise of planning my wedding celebration. That night, I confronted Marcus. "How was your meeting with Jessica about the bachelorette party?" "It was good. We looked at a few venues, discussed catering options." "What venues?" Marcus looked confused. There was a restaurant downtown and a couple of bars Jessica thought you'd like." "Can you be more specific? I'm curious about the options." "Olivia, it's supposed to be a surprise. Jessica made me promise not to give away details." "Marcus, I know you weren't looking at party venues today." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I know you spent 2 hours at Vintage Wine Bar having an intimate conversation where Jessica touched your face." Marcus went completely pale. "Olivia, I can explain." "Please do." "Jessica has been pursuing me, but I've been trying to handle it without hurting your friendship with her." "Pursuing you how?" "She's been suggesting that you and I aren't really compatible, that you're settling for me because you're afraid of being alone, that I could do better with someone who appreciates me more." "And what do you say to that?" "I tell her she's wrong. I tell her I love you and I'm committed to our relationship, but you keep meeting with her because she says she's planning your bachelorette party. I didn't want to ruin your celebration by creating drama with your best friend." "Marcus, she touched your face today. That's not party planning." "I know. I was about to tell her that the meetings need to stop, but then you'd want to know why, and I didn't want to hurt you by telling you that your best friend is trying to sabotage our relationship." I wanted to believe Marcus, but something about his story didn't add up. "Show me your text messages with Jessica." "Olivia, I don't think if you're being honest about her pursuing you and you rejecting her, then the text messages will support that." "Show me." Marcus reluctantly handed over his phone. The text thread with Jessica was much longer and more intimate than anything he'd described to me. "Jessica, had such a good time talking today. Olivia is so lucky to have someone who actually listens." Marcus, "Thanks, that means a lot." Jessica, "I hope you know that not everyone sees you as just reliable. Some people see how special you really are." Marcus, "Jessica, I appreciate the compliment, but I love Olivia." Jessica, "I know you do. I just wonder if she loves the real you or just the security you represent." Marcus, "What do you mean?" Jessica, "She's always talking about how stable and practical you are, like you're a good investment rather than a passionate choice." Marcus, "That's not how she means it." Jessica, "Isn't it? When's the last time she looked at you the way she looks at her career achievements?" This conversation had happened 2 weeks ago. Marcus had never mentioned it to me. I kept reading. Jessica, "You deserve someone who chooses you because they can't imagine living without you, not because you check boxes on their life plan." Marcus, "Jessica, this conversation is making me uncomfortable." Jessica, "I'm sorry. I just care about both of you and I want you both to be happy." Marcus, "I am happy." Jessica, "Are you? Really? Because you seem stressed about the wedding, like you're not sure it's what you want." Marcus, "Wedding planning is stressful for everyone." Jessica, "Or maybe it's stressful because you're marrying the wrong person." And then most recently, Jessica, "I need to tell you something, but I'm afraid it will hurt you." Marcus, "What is it?" Jessica, "Olivia has been having doubts about the wedding. She's been talking to me about whether she's making a mistake." Marcus, "What kind of doubts?" Jessica, "She's worried that she's settling because she's afraid of being single. She says you're a good man, but she's not sure she's in love with you." Marcus, "She said that?" Jessica, "I probably shouldn't have told you, but I thought you deserved to know." This was a complete lie. I'd never said anything like that to Jessica. In fact, I'd spent months telling her how excited I was to marry Marcus, how grateful I was to have found someone so wonderful. Jessica was manufacturing relationship problems to drive a wedge between us. But the most damning part was Marcus's response. Marcus, "Thank you for telling me. I've been feeling like something was off but couldn't put my finger on it." Jessica, "I'm here if you need to talk through anything." Marcus, "I might take you up on that." Marcus hadn't rejected Jessica's manipulation. He'd thanked her for it and invited more. I was staring at evidence that my best friend was systematically destroying my relationship, and my fiancé was allowing it to happen. "Marcus," I said quietly, handing back his phone, "I have never expressed doubts about marrying you to Jessica or anyone else." "What?" "The conversation where Jessica claims I said I was settling for you and wasn't sure I was in love with you, that never happened." Marcus stared at me. "But she said," "She lied. She's been lying to both of us to create problems between us." "Why would she do that?" "Because she wants you for herself." The truth was starting to dawn on Marcus's face. "Olivia, I'm so sorry. I should have told you what she was saying instead of trying to handle it myself." "Yeah, you should have. What do we do now?" I looked at my fiancé, who'd been manipulated by my best friend, but had also kept secrets from me and entertained conversations that undermined our relationship. "I don't know yet. I need to think." That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of immediately confronting Jessica or calling off the wedding, I was going to investigate exactly what Jessica had been up to. Because something about her behavior felt bigger than just wanting to steal my fiancé. The level of manipulation, the strategic planning, the sophisticated psychological games, this felt like someone with experience in deception. I started with Jessica's social media accounts, looking for patterns or inconsistencies in her posts about work, relationships, and lifestyle. Jessica claimed to work as a freelance marketing consultant, which supposedly easily explained her flexible schedule and ability to afford her expensive lifestyle, but her social media showed a level of luxury that didn't match her claimed income. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, luxury vacations, a high-end apartment, all on a freelance consultant's salary. I started researching her supposed clients. The companies she mentioned in her posts either didn't exist or had no record of hiring her for marketing services. I looked up her business license and tax records. She'd filed as a sole proprietorship but had never reported significant income from marketing consulting. So where was Jessica's money coming from? I decided to investigate her dating history more thoroughly. Jessica had a pattern of dating wealthy, successful men for relatively short periods. She'd be intensely involved with someone for 6-12 months, then the relationship would end abruptly, and she'd move on to someone new. But after each relationship ended, Jessica's lifestyle would upgrade significantly. After dating a real estate developer, she moved to a nicer apartment. After dating a finance executive, she bought a luxury car. After dating a tech entrepreneur, she started taking expensive vacations. This pattern suggested that Jessica wasn't just dating these men, she was extracting financial benefits from them. I started reaching out to Jessica's ex-boyfriends through social media, claiming I was planning a surprise party for her and wanted to include people from her past. The responses I got were illuminating. Jessica, haven't heard from her since she disappeared with my Rolex and $10,000 in cash from my safe. You're still friends with her? She conned me out of $25,000 for her sick mother's medical bills. Found out later her mother was perfectly healthy. Be careful with that one. She's got expensive tastes and flexible ethics. Jessica wasn't a marketing consultant. She was a professional con artist who specialized in romance scams. She would target successful men, build emotional connections, create fake emergencies that required financial assistance, and then disappear once she'd extracted maximum value. But apparently, targeting my fiancé was different. Instead of running her usual con, she was trying to steal him permanently, which meant Marcus represented something more valuable to her than a one-time payday. I started investigating Marcus's finances to understand what Jessica might be after. What I found surprised me. Marcus had inherited a significant amount of money from his grandmother 2 years earlier, right around the time we'd gotten serious. The inheritance was worth about $1.8 million and was invested in a trust that would become accessible when he got married. Jessica somehow knew about Marcus's inheritance and was positioning herself to benefit from it long-term rather than short-term. She wasn't just trying to steal my fiancé, she was trying to steal my fiancé's fortune. The question was, how did she know about the inheritance when I didn't? I confronted Marcus about this. You inherited $1.8 million and never told me? Marcus looked embarrassed. I was going to tell you after we were married. I didn't want you to think I was trying to buy your love or that you were marrying me for money. Who else knows about the inheritance? My lawyer, my financial advisor, my parents, and Jessica. How does Jessica know? She asked about our financial plans for after the wedding. I mentioned that we'd be more comfortable than expected because of my grandmother's inheritance. When did you tell her this? Maybe 3 months ago? She was asking whether we'd thought about buying a house immediately or waiting a few years. 3 months ago was exactly when Jessica's behavior toward Marcus had escalated from friendly flirtation to aggressive pursuit. She'd been planning this entire operation since the moment she learned about the money. Now I understood the scope of what I was dealing with. This wasn't just personal betrayal, it was organized fraud. Jessica had spent months researching Marcus's finances, manufacturing relationship problems between us, and positioning herself as the sympathetic alternative to our supposedly troubled relationship. She'd been running a long-term con designed to steal my fiancé and his inheritance. The wedding was in 6 weeks. Jessica had been planning something dramatic for the ceremony itself. I was sure of it. She would wait until the last possible moment to maximize the emotional impact and minimize my ability to recover. But I had advantages that Jessica's previous victims didn't have. I knew she was a con artist. I had evidence of her crimes, and I had 6 weeks to plan my own operation. Jessica thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She was about to discover that I'd been playing chess too, and I was better at it than she was. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day planning the most elaborate countercon in history. Jessica wanted to destroy my wedding to steal my fiancé. I was going to let her try, then destroy her entire life with a single phone call. But first, I needed to gather more evidence. I started by contacting a private investigator who specialized in financial fraud. Within a week, he'd uncovered the full scope of Jessica's criminal activities. She'd been running romance scams for at least 5 years across multiple states. She had fake identities, multiple social security numbers, and a network of accomplices who helped her research potential victims. The total amount she'd stolen was over $400,000. She was wanted by the FBI for wire fraud, identity theft, and organized conspiracy. Jessica wasn't just my best friend who'd gone bad. She was a federal fugitive who'd been using our friendship as cover for her criminal operations. All those times she'd stayed at my apartment, she'd been hiding from law enforcement. All those emergency trips she'd taken for work, she'd been setting up new cons in different cities. All those random men she'd dated, she'd been systematically robbing. I'd been providing safe harbor for a federal criminal without knowing it. The private investigator connected me with FBI agent Sarah Coleman, who'd been tracking Jessica's activities for 2 years. We've been looking for Jessica Martinez, though I'm guessing you know her by a different name, Agent Coleman said. I know her as Jessica Chen. We've been best friends for 15 years. Jessica Chen is one of at least 6 identities she's used. Her real name is Jennifer Martinez, and she's been running sophisticated romance scams since she was 20. She's been my friend since we were 13. Ms. Rodriguez, I need you to understand something. People like Jennifer don't have friends. They have targets, accomplices, and cover stories. Your 15-year friendship was likely part of her long-term strategy. This hit me like a physical blow. Everything I'd believed about my relationship with Jessica was a lie. But we were teenagers when we met. What could she possibly have been planning? Long-term con artists often cultivate relationships that can be useful later. A stable, law-abiding friend provides credibility and access to social circles full of potential victims. So our entire friendship was fake? Not necessarily fake, but definitely strategic. Jennifer is very good at compartmentalizing. She may have genuinely cared about you while still using you for her criminal activities. Agent Coleman showed me files documenting Jessica's crimes across multiple states. Photos of victims, bank records, evidence of her sophisticated operations. We've been trying to build a case against her for 2 years, but she's very careful about evidence. She uses burner phones, fake identities, and never stays in one place long enough for us to catch her. What kind of evidence would you need to arrest her? Recorded confessions, financial documents, testimony from victims who can identify her in person. What if I could get you all of that? How? She's planning to sabotage my wedding in 6 weeks to steal my fiancé. What if I let her do it, but record everything and make sure you're there to arrest her? Agent Coleman looked intrigued. That would be extremely dangerous. If Jennifer realizes you're working with law enforcement, you could be in serious physical danger. She's already destroyed my life. I want to make sure she can't destroy anyone else's. What do you have in mind? I outlined my plan. Jessica was expecting to sabotage my wedding and walk away with Marcus and his inheritance. Instead, she was going to confess to federal crimes in front of 200 witnesses and get arrested at the altar. Agent Coleman agreed to coordinate with local law enforcement to have undercover agents at the wedding. But first, I needed to set the trap. I went home and called Jessica. Hey, I need to talk to you about something. Can you come over? Jessica arrived within an hour, concerned and supportive as always. What's wrong, Olivia? You sounded upset on the phone. I'm having doubts about the wedding. Jessica's eyes lit up, though she tried to hide it. What kind of doubts? I think Marcus might be having an affair. What? Why would you think that? He's been secretive lately, hiding his phone, making excuses to go out alone, weird changes in his behavior. Have you talked to him about it? I tried, but he just gets defensive and changes the subject. Jessica put her arm around me. I'm so sorry, Olivia. What can I do to help? I don't know. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe I'm just stressed about the wedding. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. You really think so? I think you deserve someone who's completely committed to you. Someone who makes you feel secure and loved, not suspicious and anxious. Like who? Like someone who appreciates how amazing you are instead of making you question yourself. I could see Jessica testing the waters, trying to gauge how vulnerable I was to manipulation. Jessica, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think Marcus and I are right for each other? Jessica paused, clearly calculating her response. I think you're a wonderful person who deserves to be with someone who sees your worth. That's not really an answer. Olivia, you're my best friend. I want you to be happy. If Marcus makes you happy, then I support your relationship completely. But if he doesn't, then I support you making whatever choice is best for your life. What would you do in my situation? I'd want to know the truth, even if it hurt. Will you help me find out the truth? What do you need me to do? Perfect. Jessica was taking the bait. I want to test Marcus, see if he's really committed to me or if he's interested in other options. How? I want you to flirt with him, see if he responds. Jessica tried to look shocked. Olivia, I couldn't do that to you. Please. I need to know who I'm marrying. If he's faithful, then I'll know my doubts are just wedding anxiety. If he's not, then I'll call off the wedding. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. Will you help me? Jessica pretended to reluctant. After part 1 exploded, a lot of you asked how I could have been so naive about Jessica's criminal activities. Trust me, I've asked myself the same question. But when someone spends 15 years building your trust, you don't question their lies until you have a reason to. Jessica agreed to test Marcus's faithfulness, just as I'd hoped she would. If you're really sure about this, she said reluctantly, I'll try flirting with him and see how he responds. Thank you. I know it's awkward, but I need to know. How do you want me to do this? Maybe at the wedding rehearsal dinner? There will be enough people around that it won't be obvious, but intimate enough that his real personality will show. What if he doesn't respond to flirtation? Then I'll know he's committed to me, and I can stop worrying. And if he does respond, then I'll know I'm making a mistake, and I can call off the wedding before it's too late. Jessica was practically glowing with excitement, though she was trying to hide it. Olivia, are you sure you want to risk this? What if testing him changes things between you, even if he passes the test? I'd rather know the truth and deal with consequences than marry someone I can't trust. You're very brave. I'm very scared, but you're right that I deserve someone who's completely committed to me. Over the next few weeks, Jessica ramped up her manipulation campaign, but now she thought she had my permission. She started suggesting that she and Marcus should coordinate more wedding details to take stress off you during this difficult time. She offered to handle last-minute vendor communications, so you can focus on your emotional preparation. She volunteered to pick up Marcus's wedding ring, since I'll be downtown anyway for your dress fitting. Jessica was positioning herself to have maximum access to Marcus while appearing to be helping me. Meanwhile, I was working with Agent Coleman to document everything. We set up recording devices in my apartment for conversations with Jessica. We established phone taps to monitor her communications with Marcus and her other criminal associates. We coordinated with local law enforcement to have undercover agents at the wedding. The plan was simple. Let Jessica sabotage the wedding ceremony, record her confession, and arrest her in front of 200 witnesses. But first, we needed to gather evidence of her other crimes. Agent Coleman arranged for me to wear a wire during conversations with Jessica, where I would try to get her to talk about her past relationships and financial situation. Jessica, can I ask you something about your dating history? Sure, what do you want to know? How do you always end up so financially stable after relationships end? I'm terrible at managing money, but you always seem to land on your feet. Jessica looked uncomfortable. I guess I'm just good at saving, but you live so well. The apartment, the car, the vacations. Marketing consulting must be really lucrative. I've been lucky with a few high-paying contracts. What kind of contracts? Mostly rebranding campaigns for tech startups. They pay well because they're desperate to establish market presence quickly. Can you give me some examples? I'm thinking about freelancing too. Client confidentiality, you know how it is. Come on, just company names. I'm not asking for trade secrets. Olivia, why are you suddenly so interested in my work? I had to be careful not to push too hard. I'm just worried about money after the wedding. Marcus is great, but I want to be financially independent too. You don't need to worry about money with Marcus. What do you mean? I mean, he's very well established. He can take care of you. How do you know about Marcus's finances? He mentioned that you'd be comfortable after the wedding. He told you about the inheritance? Jessica realized she'd revealed more than she intended. He just said you wouldn't have to worry about money. I didn't pry for details, but I could see in her eyes that she knew exactly how much money Marcus had inherited and when he'd gain access to it. The next phase of my plan involved testing how far Jessica was willing to go to sabotage my relationship. I called her crying one evening. Jessica, something terrible happened. What's wrong? Marcus and I had a huge fight. About the wedding, about money, about everything. What kind of fight? He accused me of being too controlling about wedding planning. Said I was treating him like an employee instead of a partner. That's terrible. What did you say? I told him that if he wasn't happy with my planning style, maybe we should postpone the wedding. And what did he say? He said maybe that wasn't a bad idea. Jessica tried to sound sympathetic, but I could hear the excitement in her voice. Where are things now? I don't know. He's staying at his apartment tonight. We're supposed to talk tomorrow. I'm so sorry, Olivia. Is there anything I can do? Actually, yes. Can you talk to him? You're good with people and you're neutral. Maybe you can help us figure out if this relationship is worth saving. Are you sure you want me to get involved? I trust you. And honestly, I'm too emotional to have a rational conversation with him right now. What do you want me to tell him? Just listen to what he's really thinking. Find out if he wants to work through our problems or if he's looking for an excuse to end things. And if he wants to end things, then I'd rather know now than after we're married. Jessica agreed to talk to Marcus, and I immediately texted him to warn him about what was coming. Jessica is going to call you. She thinks we had a fight and I'm questioning our relationship. Play along, but record everything she says. Marcus had been practicing his acting skills since we'd discovered Jessica's manipulation. He was getting good at it. When Jessica called him that night, Marcus was ready. Marcus, I heard you and Olivia had a difficult conversation. Yeah, it was pretty intense. Do you want to talk about it? I don't know, maybe. It's just everything feels so complicated lately. What feels complicated? The wedding planning has been stressful. Olivia has very specific ideas about everything, and I feel like my opinion doesn't matter. That must be frustrating. It is. Sometimes I wonder if we want the same things. What do you mean? Olivia is so focused on having the perfect wedding that I'm not sure she's thinking about having a good marriage. Have you told her this? I've tried, but she gets defensive. Like tonight, when I suggested that maybe we should slow down and make sure we're on the same page, she immediately jumped to postponing the wedding. Maybe postponing isn't a bad idea. Maybe not. I just don't want to make a mistake that affects the rest of my life. What would it take for you to feel confident about moving forward? I guess I'd need to feel like my partner understood me and supported my perspective, not just expected me to go along with her plans. That's very reasonable, is it? Sometimes I wonder if I'm being selfish. Marcus, you're not being selfish. You deserve a partner who values your input and makes you feel heard. Thanks, Jessica. It means a lot to hear that from someone who knows both of us. I care about both of you. I want you both to be happy. What do you think I should do? I think you should trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, pay attention to that feeling. Even if it means disappointing Olivia, even then, it's better to disappoint someone now than to make both of you miserable for years. The conversation continued for another hour, with Jessica systematically undermining my character while positioning herself as the understanding, supportive alternative. She suggested that Marcus and I had fundamental incompatibilities that would only get worse after marriage. She implied that I was controlling and inflexible in ways that would damage a long-term relationship. She offered to be available whenever Marcus needed someone to talk through his concerns. Most importantly, she planted the idea that Marcus should seriously consider calling off the wedding. All of this was being recorded by both Marcus and the FBI. The next day, I called Jessica to debrief about her conversation with Marcus. What did he say? I asked. He's really struggling, Olivia. He loves you, but he's having serious doubts about whether you're compatible long-term. What kind of doubts? He feels like you don't value his input, like you've already decided how everything should be and he's just supposed to go along with it. Did he say he wanted to call off the wedding? He's considering it. I started crying, which wasn't difficult given the stress of the situation. I don't know what to do, Jessica. I love him, but maybe he's right that we're not compatible. What are you thinking? Maybe I should call off the wedding myself. Save us both the heartbreak of a failed marriage. That's a big decision. What would you do? I'd want to be with someone who was excited about building a life with me, not someone who felt like they were making a sacrifice. You're right. Maybe it's better to end things now before we both get hurt worse. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. Jessica, if I do call off the wedding, will you help me handle the logistics, canceling vendors, returning gifts, all that? Of course, whatever you need. And will you be there for Marcus too? This is going to be hard on him, and he's going going to need friends. I'll do whatever I can to help both of you through this. Perfect. Jessica was positioning herself to be Marcus's primary emotional support after our supposed breakup. But I wasn't actually calling off the wedding. I was setting the stage for Jessica to make her move at the ceremony itself. Over the next 2 weeks, I continued to express doubts about my relationship, while Jessica continued to encourage those doubts and offer herself as a solution. She suggested that Marcus and I should take a break before making any permanent decisions. She offered to mediate conversations between us to help you both figure out what you really want. She started spending more time with Marcus under the guise of helping him process his emotions about our relationship troubles. All of this was being documented by the FBI. 3 days before the wedding, I played my final card. I called Jessica in tears. It's over. I can't do this anymore. What happened? Marcus and I talked last night. We both admitted that we're having doubts, and we decided to call off the wedding. Oh, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I think it's for the best. Better to figure this out now than after we're married. How are you handling it? I'm devastated, but also relieved. Like a weight has been lifted. What about the wedding? All the vendors, the guests? That's what I'm calling about. I can't face dealing with all the cancellations and explanations. I'm going to go stay with my sister for a few days. Can you help me handle the logistics? Of course, whatever you need. I need you to call all the vendors and cancel everything. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, all of it. What should I tell them? Just that the wedding is off and I'll handle any financial penalties later. What about the guests? I can't face calling everyone. Can you send a group email explaining that the wedding is canceled due to personal reasons? I'll take care of everything. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. What about Marcus? How is he? He's pretty upset too. Maybe you could check on him, make sure he's okay. I'll reach out to him. Jessica, you're the best friend anyone could ask for. If only she knew. Of course, I wasn't really canceling the wedding. Agent Coleman had arranged for FBI agents to pose as vendors and confirm the cancellations, making Jessica believe her plan was working perfectly. The group email Jessica sent to our wedding guests was intercepted and replaced with a message from me asking everyone to still attend because we'd worked things out at the last minute. Jessica spent the next 2 days consoling Marcus and positioning herself as his emotional support during our breakup. She suggested that maybe their friendship could become something more now that he was single. She implied that she'd always had feelings for him but had suppressed them out of loyalty to me. She offered to be his date to various social events so he wouldn't have to face them alone. Marcus played along perfectly, seeming vulnerable and grateful for her support. The night before the wedding, Jessica made her final move. She went to Marcus's apartment with a bottle of wine and a speech about how she'd always loved him but had never been able to act on her feelings while he was with me. I know this is terrible timing, she said, but I can't pretend anymore. I've been in love with you for years. Jessica, I had no idea. I tried to ignore it. You were with my best friend, and I would never betray Olivia like that. But now you're free, and I don't want to miss my chance to tell you how I feel. Marcus, following the script we'd rehearsed, seemed torn between grief over our breakup and surprise at Jessica's confession. I don't know what to say. I'm still processing everything that happened with Olivia. I understand. I'm not asking for an answer right now. I just wanted you to know that you have options. What kind of options? You could be with someone who truly appreciates you. Someone who's been watching you and admiring you for years. You really feel that way about me? I've never felt this way about anyone. They spent the night together, with Jessica believing she'd successfully stolen my fiancé and Marcus gathering evidence of her confession. The next morning was my wedding day. Jessica called me bright and early. Olivia, I need to tell you something and you're going to hate me. What is it? Something happened between Marcus and me last night. What do you mean? We kissed and more. I'm so sorry, but I've been in love with him for years. And now that you're not together, you slept with my ex-fiancé the night before what would have been my wedding. I know how it sounds, but Olivia, we really have feelings for each other. How long has this been going on? Nothing happened while you were together, I swear. But we've had an emotional connection for months. An emotional connection? We understand each other in a way that maybe you and he never did. Are you saying you're in love with him? I think I am. And I think he feels the same way. So what happens now? I don't know. We're going to figure it out together. Jessica, you've been my best friend for 15 years. I know. And I hate that this happened this way. But I can't control my feelings. I can't believe you're choosing a man over our friendship. I'm not choosing him over you. I'm choosing happiness over hiding my feelings. This was exactly what I'd been waiting for. Jessica's full confession of her betrayal. Jessica, I need to ask you something. What? Was any of our friendship real? Or was this always your plan? Of course our friendship was real. This thing with Marcus just happened. Did it? Because it feels like you've been working toward this for months. I don't know what you mean. I mean all the times you questioned whether Marcus and I were right for each other. All the times you planted doubts about our relationship. All the times you positioned yourself as the better alternative. Olivia, you're upset and you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe our friendship ending is for the best because I'm starting to realize that you've never been the friend I thought you were. That's not fair, isn't it? Jessica, how many of your ex-boyfriends gave you money? There was a long silence. What? How many of your relationships ended with you receiving large sums of money for emergencies or investments or business opportunities? I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. I think you're very good at making men fall in love with you and then taking advantage of their feelings. Olivia, you're being ridiculous. Am I? Because I've done some research, and it's amazing what people will tell you about their past relationships when you ask the right questions. Another silence. What kind of research? The kind that reveals patterns, like how you always date successful men men for 6 to 12 months before mysteriously needing money for emergencies. Like how you always end up financially better off after relationships end. Like how you've been using multiple identities and social security numbers. I could hear Jessica's breathing change on the other end of the phone. I don't know what you think you've discovered, but I know exactly what I've discovered. The question is whether you're going to admit it or whether I need to prove it. Prove what? That Jennifer Martinez, aka Jessica Chen, aka Jessica Williams, aka Jessica Taylor, is a federal fugitive wanted for wire fraud, identity theft, and organized conspiracy. Dead silence. Jessica, are you still there? How long have you known? Long enough to document everything. What do you want? I want you to come to the wedding. What? The wedding is still happening. I want you to come and publicly explain to all our friends and family why you betrayed me. I'm not coming to your wedding. Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'm calling the FBI right now and telling them exactly where to find you. You're bluffing. Try me. Jessica hung up. 30 minutes later, she called back. If I come to the wedding, what happens? You tell everyone the truth about who you really are and what you've done. And then you face the consequences of your choices. Olivia, please, I never meant for any of this to hurt you. You spent 15 years using our friendship as cover for criminal activities. You tried to steal my fiancé and his inheritance. You manipulated both of us for months. How exactly did you think this wouldn't hurt me? I was desperate. You were greedy. What if I disappear? Leave town and never contact you or Marcus again? Then I call the FBI and you spend the rest of your life running from federal agents. What if I confess and cooperate with law enforcement? Then maybe you get a reduced sentence and a chance to start over, honestly. You're really going to destroy my life over a man? I'm going to hold you accountable for destroying your own life with criminal behavior. Jessica agreed to come to the wedding. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. at the country club. By 3:30, all 200 guests were seated, including several undercover FBI agents positioned throughout the venue. Marcus was at the altar, looking nervous but determined. I was in the bridal suite, wearing my wedding dress and a wire that would broadcast everything to Agent Coleman's surveillance team. At 3:45, Jessica arrived wearing a black dress that was entirely inappropriate for a wedding. She found me in the bridal suite. I'm here. What do you want me to do? I want you to walk down the aisle with the wedding party and stand with my bridesmaids. You want me to be in the wedding? I want you to be where everyone can see you when you confess. Confess to what exactly? Everything. Your real name, your criminal history, your plan to steal Marcus, all of it. And if I refuse? I held up my phone, which showed Agent Coleman's number ready to dial. Then you get arrested right now instead of after you confess. Jessica looked defeated. How long have you been planning this? Since the moment I figured out who you really are. The worried friend act? The relationship doubts? All of it was fake? All of it was justice. You're vindictive. I'm thorough. At 4 p.m., the music started and the wedding party began walking down the aisle. Jessica walked with the bridesmaids, her face a mask of forced composure. I walked down the aisle to Marcus, who smiled at me like he was seeing me for the first time. The officiant began the ceremony with the standard opening remarks about love, commitment, and the joining of two families. Then he asked if anyone had any reason why Marcus and I should not be married. That was Jessica's cue. She stood up from her position with the bridesmaids. I do, she said loudly. The entire wedding party turned to stare at her. Murmurs rippled through the guests. Jessica, the officiant said, this is highly unusual. I know, but there are things that need to be said before the ceremony continues. I nodded to the officiant, who stepped aside to let Jessica speak. Jessica walked to the center of the altar, facing the 200 guests. My name is not Jessica Chen, she began. My real name is Jennifer Martinez, and I'm wanted by the FBI for fraud and identity theft. Gasps from the crowd. Several people stood up. For the past 15 years, I've been using my friendship with Olivia as cover for criminal activities. I've been running romance scams, stealing money from the men I've dated, and using multiple fake identities. The murmurs turned into outright chaos. 6 months ago, I learned that Marcus had inherited a significant amount of money. I decided to try to steal him from Olivia so I could access his inheritance. Marcus stepped forward. Jessica, what are you doing? I'm confessing. I've spent months manipulating both of you, lying about Olivia's feelings to you and lying about your feelings to her. I created problems in your relationship so I could position myself as the solution. That's insane, someone from the audience called out. It's criminal, Jessica replied, and it's not the first time I've done it. She pulled out a piece of paper. This is a list of my previous victims. Men I've conned out of over $400,000 across 5 states. She began reading names and amounts. David Richardson, $45,000 for my fake mother's cancer treatment. Michael Torres, $38,000 for a fake business investment. James Wilson, $52,000 for fake emergency medical bills. The list went on for 10 more names. When she finished, the venue was completely silent. I'm sorry, Jessica said, looking directly at me. I'm sorry for using our friendship. I'm sorry for trying to steal your fiancé. I'm sorry for all the lies and manipulation. Are you sorry for the crimes? I asked. I'm sorry for everything. That's when Agent Coleman stood up from her seat in the back row. Jennifer Martinez, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. 4 other agents appeared from different locations in the venue, surrounding Jessica. As Agent Coleman read Jessica her rights, the wedding guests sat in stunned silence. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the officiant's microphone, I apologize for the drama. Jessica Martinez is a federal fugitive who has been using our friendship as cover for criminal activities. The FBI has been investigating her for 2 years, and today's confession provides the evidence they needed to arrest her. Ma'am, Agent Coleman said to me, we'll need you and Mr. Williams to come to the federal building tomorrow to provide formal statements. secrets? Of course. As the agents led Jessica away in handcuffs, she looked back at me one final time. Was any of this real? She asked. Our friendship, your feelings for Marcus, any of it? My friendship with you was real until I found out you were a criminal. My feelings for Marcus are completely real. The only fake thing here was you. After Jessica was removed from the venue, I turned back to our guests. If everyone is willing to stay, Marcus and I would still like to get married today. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. The rest of the ceremony proceeded normally, except for the part where the officiant asked if anyone else had any objections to our union. No one did. We were married at 4:47 p.m. with 200 witnesses who would never forget our wedding day. The reception was the most talked about party in our social circle's history. Everyone wanted to know how I'd figured out Jessica's criminal activities, how I'd planned the sting operation, how I'd managed to keep it secret for months. Marcus gave a speech about how proud he was to marry someone with the intelligence and courage to protect her family from a sophisticated criminal. My wife, he said, is the kind of person who doesn't just solve problems. She solves them so thoroughly that they can never hurt anyone else. 6 months later, Jessica was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to 23 counts of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The victims she'd testified against were able to recover some of their stolen money through asset forfeiture proceedings. Jessica's accomplices in other states were arrested based on evidence found in her communications. The FBI estimated that my wedding day sting operation had prevented Jessica from stealing another $200,000 from future victims. Marcus and I used part of his inheritance to establish a foundation that helps victims of romance scams recover financially and emotionally from their experiences. We've been married for 2 years now, and our relationship is stronger than ever. Going through Jessica's betrayal and the sting operation together taught us how to communicate, trust each other, and work as a team under pressure. Sometimes people ask if I regret the dramatic way I handled Jessica's crimes. I don't. Jessica had been destroying lives for years without consequences. She'd stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from vulnerable people. She'd used our 15-year friendship as cover for federal crimes. A quiet arrest would have given her the opportunity to plea bargain, serve minimal time, and continue running cons after her release. A public confession in front of 200 witnesses ensured that everyone in our social circle knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of. It also provided the FBI with unambiguous evidence that couldn't be disputed in court. Jessica got the maximum sentence because she'd confessed to her crimes in detail, on tape, in front of hundreds of witnesses. Justice was served, future victims were protected, and I got to marry the love of my life all in the same day. Some people might call it vindictive. I call it efficient. This is the final update, and I honestly wasn't going to write it. What I discovered 6 months after Jessica's arrest changes the entire story in ways I'm still processing. But Marcus convinced me that people deserve to know the whole truth. Jessica was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, but that's not where this story ends. It's where it gets really complicated. 3 months after the wedding, I received a letter from Jessica in prison. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. Olivia, it began, I know you have no reason to believe anything I say, but there are things about your family that you need to know. Things I should have told you years ago. I'm not trying to manipulate you or get sympathy. I just can't go to prison knowing I kept these secrets. The letter continued. Your parents didn't die in a car accident. They were murdered, and the people who killed them have been watching you your entire life. I showed the letter to Marcus, who thought it was obviously another manipulation attempt by Jessica. She's trying to get under your skin, he said, creating mystery and drama to make you feel like you need her. But what if she's telling the truth? Olivia, you've seen your parents' death certificates. You've seen the police reports from the accident. I've seen copies of documents that other people gave me. This planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't shake. I decided to investigate my parents' deaths myself, just to prove Jessica was lying. What I found destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. I started by requesting the original police reports from the accident that killed my parents when I was 22. The clerk at the records department looked confused when I provided the date and location. Ma'am, we don't have any traffic fatality reports for that date and location. That's impossible. My parents died in a car accident on Highway 95 on March 15th, 2019. We have no record of any accidents on Highway 95 that day. I provided every detail I could remember, the approximate time, the description of the accident, the hospital where their bodies were taken. None of it existed in official records. The death certificates I'd been given were forgeries. I went to the hospital where I thought my parents had been taken. They had no record of treating or receiving bodies for anyone with my parents' names on that date. I contacted the funeral home that had handled their burial. They had no record of my parents' funeral. My parents' entire death, the accident, the hospital, the funeral, all of it, had been an elaborate fiction. But if my parents hadn't died in a car accident, what had happened to them? I hired the same private investigator who'd helped me research Jessica's criminal activities. Within a week, he'd uncovered the truth. My parents, Robert and Linda Morrison, had been federal witnesses in a major organized crime case. They'd been living under assumed identities since I was 10 years old. When I was 22, their cover was blown, and they were murdered by the crime family they'd testified against. The car accident was a cover story created by the FBI to protect me from the same people who'd killed my parents. I'd been living under federal protection my entire adult life without knowing it. Agent Coleman, who'd helped with Jessica's arrest, confirmed everything when I confronted her. Your parents were witnesses in the Torino family case, she explained. They'd been in witness protection since 1987, when you were 10. Their original names were Richard and Susan Susan Delacroix. Delacroix? That's not Morrison. Morrison was their protected identity. Delacroix was their real name. Why didn't anyone tell me this when they died? Because the Torino family was still active. We couldn't protect you if you knew the truth about why your parents were killed. So I've been living a lie for 8 years? You've been living safely for 8 years. What about Jessica? How does she fit into this? That's where things get complicated. Agent Coleman pulled out a thick file. Jennifer Martinez isn't just a romance scammer. She's an operative for the Torino crime family. My blood went cold. What? She was assigned to get close to you 8 years ago, right after your parents were killed. You're saying my best friend was working for the people who murdered my parents? We're saying your best friend was tasked with monitoring you for signs that you might know about your parents' real identities or their testimony. For 8 years? For 8 years. I felt like I was going to throw up. The romance scams, the fraud, all of it was real? All of it was real, but it was also cover for her primary mission, which was keeping tabs on you. And Marcus? Marcus was never part of the plan. Jennifer going after him was her own decision, motivated by greed rather than orders from the Torino family. So Jessica, Jennifer, whoever she is, she betrayed both me and the crime family? Exactly. She was supposed to be monitoring you, but instead she got distracted by your fiancé's inheritance and decided to run her own con. What happens now? Now you have a choice. We can relocate you under a new identity, or you can stay here under enhanced protection. What kind of enhanced protection? Constant surveillance, restricted travel, limited contact with people who haven't been security cleared. That's not really living. It's being alive. I asked for time to think about it. That night, I called Jessica in prison. You knew, I said when she answered. You knew my parents were murdered and you said nothing for 8 years. I couldn't tell you. Because you were working for the people who killed them. Because I was protecting you. Protecting me? You were spying on me. I was making sure you stayed safe by staying ignorant. That's not the same thing. Olivia, if you'd known the truth about your parents, you would have tried to investigate. You would have put yourself in danger. So you decided to lie to me instead. I decided to be your friend instead of just your handler. Your handler? The Torino family assigned me to monitor you when you were 22. I was supposed to report any signs that you knew about your parents' real identities. And did you report on me? For the first few months. But then I realized you genuinely didn't know anything, and you were just a normal person grieving your parents. So you stopped reporting? I stopped reporting anything that mattered. I'd send them updates about your job, your relationships, your daily routine, nothing that could hurt you. But you kept lying to me. I kept protecting you the only way I knew how. By committing federal crimes? The crimes were never about you. They were about survival. The Torino family doesn't pay well, and I needed money to maintain my cover identity. So you stole from innocent people. I stole from men who could afford it. That doesn't make it right. Nothing about my life has been right since I was 16, and the FBI forced me to work for them. This was news to me. What do you mean forced you to work for them? My real name is Maria Santos. I'm the daughter of Paulo Santos, who was killed by the Torino family in 1998. I don't understand. The FBI offered me a choice after my father was murdered. I could go into witness protection and spend my life hiding, or I could help them infiltrate the crime family that killed him. You chose to infiltrate them. I chose revenge. But revenge that took 15 years to plan and execute. 15 years? The romance scams, the fake identities, all of it was building toward one goal: gathering enough evidence to destroy the Torino family completely. Evidence? I've been documenting their operations for 15 years. Money laundering, murder contracts, bribery schemes, everything. And now I'm going to testify against them in exchange for a reduced sentence. What does this mean for me? It means the people who killed your parents are going to prison for the rest of their lives. And it means you've been lying to me about everything for 15 years. Not everything. My friendship with you became real. My care for you became real. Everything else was performance, but that part was genuine. After talking to Jessica, I had another conversation with Agent Coleman. How much of what Jessica told me is true? All of it. Maria Santos has been a federal informant since she was 16. Her infiltration of the Torino family has been one of our longest-running operations. So she was never really my friend? She was assigned to monitor you, but over time she became genuinely attached to you. How do you know that? Because she's been protecting you in ways that went against her orders. What do you mean? The Torino family wanted her to find out if you knew anything about your parents' testimony. When they became convinced you didn't, they ordered her to eliminate you as a potential threat. Eliminate me? Kill you. And Jessica refused? Maria convinced them you were harmless and that killing you would attract unwanted federal attention. She saved my life. She's been saving your life for years. But she also tried to steal my fiancé. That wasn't part of her federal assignment. That was personal greed and poor judgment. So she's both a hero and a criminal. She's a complicated person who's been living an impossible life for 15 years. I had to process all of this information while also deciding what to do about my own safety. The Torino family was going to be destroyed by Jessica's testimony, but they had associates and allies who might seek revenge against the families of the witnesses who brought them down. Marcus and I could relocate under new identities, but that would mean giving up our entire lives, our careers, our families. Or we could stay and live under constant federal protection, which wasn't really living freely either. We chose a third option. We moved to a different state, changed our last names, and started over with minimal federal oversight. It wasn't witness protection, but it wasn't our old life either. Marcus transferred to a new tech company. I started a new consulting business. We bought a house under our new names and slowly built a new social circle. The hardest part was cutting contact with everyone from our old life. Our families know we moved for career opportunities, but they don't know about the federal case or the danger we were in. Our old friends think we just wanted a a fresh start after the drama of our wedding. Only Agent Coleman knows where we are and how to contact us. Jessica's trial began 6 months ago. She testified for 3 weeks, providing evidence that led to indictments of 47 members of the Torino crime family and their associates. The people who killed my parents were sentenced to life in prison without parole. Jessica received a reduced sentence of 5 years in exchange for her cooperation. She'll be eligible for parole in 3 years. I don't know if I'll ever speak to her again after she's released. On one hand, she saved my life multiple times and helped bring my parents' killers to justice. On the other hand, she lied to me for 15 years and tried to steal my husband. She was both my protector and my betrayer. Marcus thinks I should forgive her. She was a teenager forced into an impossible situation, he says. She made mistakes, but she also sacrificed her entire life to protect you and get justice for your family. She also committed federal crimes and tried to ruin our relationship. People are complicated. She can be both the person who saved your life and the person who hurt you. I know he's right, but I'm not ready to forgive yet. Maybe I will be in a few years. Or maybe some betrayals are too deep to overcome, even when they're mixed with protection and sacrifice. Last month, I received another letter from Jessica. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, it said, but I wanted you to know that your parents would be proud of you. They spent their lives fighting corruption and crime, and you've continued that legacy in your own way. They also wanted you to have this. Enclosed was a letter in my father's handwriting, dated the day before he and my mother were killed. Dear Olivia, it read, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to your mother and me. We've spent the last 12 years living under assumed identities because we testified against some very dangerous people. We did it because we believed it was right to stand up to corruption, even when it was dangerous. We know our choices have affected your life in ways you don't understand. We know you might be angry when you learn the truth, but we want you to know that everything we did was to protect you and to make the world a little bit safer. We love you more than you'll ever know, and we're proud of the strong, intelligent, principled person you've become. Take care of yourself and don't let our choices define your future. All our love, Dad and Mom, Richard and Susan Delacroix. I cried for hours after reading that letter. My parents had been heroes who sacrificed their lives to fight crime. Jessica had been a hero who sacrificed her freedom to continue their work. And I had been a hero who exposed a federal fugitive and brought justice to her victims. We were all flawed heroes, but heroes nonetheless. Now Marcus and I are building a new life in a new state under new names. We've been married for 2.5 years, and our relationship survived federal investigations, organized crime, and the discovery that my entire life had been a lie. We're stronger now than we ever were before. Last week, I found out I'm pregnant. Our child will grow up knowing the truth about their grandparents and their family history. They'll know that sometimes doing the right thing is dangerous and complicated. They'll know that people can be both heroes and villains, sometimes simultaneously. They'll know that family isn't just about blood, but about the choices we make to protect and care for each other. Most importantly, they'll know that their mother comes from a long line of people who stand up to corruption and crime, even when it costs them everything. I've decided to name the baby Richard if it's a boy, after my father. If it's a girl, I'm naming her Maria, after Jessica. Because despite everything she did wrong, she spent 15 years of her life protecting mine, and that deserves to be remembered. The Torino crime family has been destroyed. My parents' killers are in prison for life. Jessica will serve her time and hopefully start over honestly when she's released. Marcus and I are safe, married, and expecting our first child. Justice has been served, not just for Jessica's romance scam victims, but for my parents and all the other people who were hurt by organized crime. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes the best revenge is living well, building something good, and making sure the next generation knows how to fight for what's right. That's the legacy I want to leave my child. Not the story of how I exposed my best friend's crimes at my wedding, but the story of how 3 generations of my family stood up to corruption and won.